parts A and B that we discussed last time with regards to the federalism writing assignment. Okay, so again, making sure those key terms in part A are broached during your write-up of the federalism writing assignment. Okay, so again, just being very keen to those, utilize those key terms as kind of markers that you want to hit on because, again, they're very important.
Sorry, I'm having trouble.
Sorry, Siri just heard something, I guess. Crazy. So again, making sure to hit on those key terms, as markers in the sense that, again, you're utilizing them as ways to talk about the subject of federalism, because, again, those are very important in that discussion. Okay? Also, I love the chats, the idea of that camaraderie, hello, hey, because, again, we experience a lot of disconnect right now, not being in a physical classroom that, again, doesn't allow us a social interaction of sorts. Okay. And again, that is, completely not your fault. Not, anybody's fault in the sense of, again, what it comes down to, because, again, situations happen, but, again, knowing that you guys are very, very, engaged in the sense of turning things in and doing a good job despite everything. Because, again, like I said, a lot of other people have decided to take the semester off, and not you, not any of you, which, again, is very, very telling of character. Because, again, a lot of people have decided, you know what, I just learn better. I can't engage. I don't learn that way. But you, again, have taken that opportunity to, again, earn credits while, the world is going through its situation right now with everything. So, investing in yourself can never lead you astray, because, again, your strengths, your weaknesses better than anyone. Okay, so again, my hat is off to you in that way. But again, just make sure we are getting the federalism writing assignment in by Sunday. Okay, so Sunday, as it says on the prompt, you will see that it is February 7th. Okay, so that's when, again, Sunday evening is when you're looking to turn it in by. Okay. So I have a private question. Any advice for students struggling with an introduction paragraph? Okay, so you can basically, in the sense of creativity wise, addressing federalism. So, federalism has been a key component in American democracy for some time. And then, describing certain things with regards to, again, what you're going to address, how you form your thesis statement, look towards that, again, addressing of parts A and B, how you are going to be talking about those things and how you form your thesis based around parts A and B. What are they asking in that way? And again, everybody is very different on how they write. So again, just different suggestions based off, again, how we all start, or have learned to start different essays that we've had throughout our life. This isn't our first rodeo, because, again, we've had many essays in the past, as you've grown up. So again, forming your thesis around parts A and B, so that, again, you're looking to address, again, what your introductory paragraph is going to say for the rest of it. And so to that private question, which is a very good question, again, utilizing the way parts A and B, and tell me how you're going to address that by way of thesis statement, pinpointing, again, what you're going to talk about, the current issues as examples. Like I said, mask mandate, that can be one. You can say Second Amendment rights, abortion rights. All of these are very different when it comes to how the national government sees things and how the states see things. So Again, we talked about that last week. So again, revolving around what parts A and B are saying and alluding to them in your introductory paragraph, that is then going to set in motion the structure of your paper moving forward. But great question. Great question. Any other good questions or questions in general? Again, this is always good because, again, it helps everyone understand what the prompt is asking. And again, there's nothing wrong with asking how an introductory paragraph should be structured because, again, we're all very different. And again, stating certain ideas as to, again, just making sure to encompass the prompt, those parts A and B, and kind of formulating, again, the words to articulate where, again, you're going to, talk about what federalism is. Any other questions before I get into chapter 4, which, again, I did post earlier today. I did post chapter 4. It is due next week. So when it comes to next week, the 9th, that's when it will be due. Okay, so shouldn't be too bad in the sense of, again, I'll be talking about what key components you really want to hit on in your quick write. So again, to help you improve your grade, I have a couple I still need to grade, but I vast majority I have graded. Take the consideration of those comments. Like I said, it's going to make you a better writer. Not just for this course, but again, moving forward, it's just going to get a lot more intense, a lot more, with regards to how professors are very anal sometimes with regards to how they want certain structures to, sound or go, specifically what you want to address. They'd want to pinpoint, let's say, the current examples for Part B, that federalism. No, I'd rather have that creative idea and say, you know what, let's let you as a student pick what current events interest you, that again, where you see a dynamic between how the national government and how the state government sees things. So again, we again, talked about cannabis, the same thing, which is also part of your last quick write, whether again, you think it should be or shouldn't be legal. For all the drugs, when it comes to drugs themselves, again, there's never a right or wrong answer. Okay, so again, I've enjoyed reading your examples of how you give things, highlighting the different ideas that again, I was told you guys to incorporate, which you guys did, which lets me know you're listening. Again, the ideas and how you oftentimes will grapple with these questions that also address, key concepts in the book and the PowerPoint. So again, as you move forward, it should be easier to score higher, especially if you adhere to the advice that I may be shooting to you in those quick writes. Okay. And again, for those people that have a 0 that didn't turn it in yet, that doesn't mean it's going to stay a 0. Okay. So again, depending on how long it takes, obviously you want to turn it in as quickly as possible. So again, just making sure that you're responsible, making sure that again, you're putting in the effort to make sure you're getting it in. So make sure if you do, it's not going to stay that way. Again, the understanding aspect to what the post-COVID-19 world is. But again, making sure you're responsible nonetheless. Any questions before I hit into chapter 4?
Yes, I had a question actually.
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned for the essays that it had to be about 34 pages long, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what if we get to a certain point where we somehow can't reach that 4th page to fully complete it? Do you have any recommendations as to what else we could add maybe? Or if we happen to go over the limit, is that all right too?
Again, you're not restricted to just one or two events or current examples. You can use abortion, you can use gun rights, you can use cannabis, you can use minimum wage, all these different examples that set in motion how the federal government sees things and how the state government sees things. Right now, great that you bring that up, Carla, because again, how the federal minimum wage, there's a lot of dialogue in changing what the federal minimum wage is going to be. So again, different ways in which kind of broaching these subjects that are very, very, up to date in terms of what they're looking to address. Okay? So again, good, idea in the sense of, again, if you need to make it a little longer, I would suggest maybe picking another example as well. You're not restricted to just one or two or three. You can talk as many as you want, giving your 2 cents about how a different state may see things, maybe California, and how the national government may see things. Okay, so you're not limited to just California's perspective here. If you want to have the Texas perspective or Florida, again, different ways where those states have different minimum wages. Again, they're very much lower than California, again, based on their, politics in their state. So very, very good point, Carla, in the sense of if you're struggling to get a little bit more, I would suggest adding in an extra example.
Okay, and then with that extra example, because of the fact that you would want to reach the page up and everything, did you want obviously you have to clarify everything that you're talking about, but did you want us to go deeper in depth of that same topic, pick a different topic or go into a different example? Or did you want something more like a summary or a full in-depth comparison? If that makes sense.
So if it's almost like if I were to not know what federalism is, and you're going to explain it to me. So again, utilizing an essay to where you're informing the reader as to what federalism is, and then incorporating your own examples as to how this grappling of the state and national government exists. So again, good point in the sense of, again, you're looking to have the reader, unaware. You're enlightening the reader as to what federalism is. So again, that's where I see a more formal essay in the sense of what, having a thesis, more guided focus in that way. So yeah, no, I that's a very good question, and I would suggest it that way.
All right, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions before I hit into chapter 4? So, Mr. Espinoza, I have a question in part A. After question, it says federalism, dual federalism, reserve powers, etc. We need to include that words in our essay. So yes. So as I said earlier, make sure to include those as a key component in part A. Again, like markers, you want to discuss those because they're very important in the discussion of federalism overall. Okay, so again, use those as let's say pinball, making sure you're hitting on those. You want to maximize your points by activating those as ways in your paper essay to guide your discussion of federalism moving forward. Any other questions before I hit into chapter 4?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
So on the examples and then on these words that we have to talk about, is it more informative where we look up those examples and based everything on what we read, or more on our own opinion?
So I would suggest where part A exists, not only in the book does it have substantive information, but also my lecture. So remember when I told you guys to put your thinking cap on? You're going to have, again, a lot of the words discussed in that portion. Again, where the Constitution is very specific as to what these powers are, but again, still very flexible in the sense of being a short document, but again, getting generations to be able to interject their ideas throughout the course of American history by way of changing of presidents, by way of changing Supreme Court justices, by way of changing legislators, congressmen and women. So again, interjecting feelings and themes based off a generation's interpretation of what and how this exists. So again, I never want to say, oh, this is the way to do things. But again, when you're talking about an informative essay, you want to inform the reader as to, again, what federalism is, as if they were just walking off the street. You want to tell them what you learned from lecture last week, also from the book, and then using your current examples, whichever ones you want, to explain that dynamic, to explain the dynamic of federalism that is lingering within that issue.
Okay, and another question about the quick write that's due today. I went a little bit over the 2 pages. Should I reduce it, or is that okay?
No, Octavio, that's awesome. That is a minimum. So in the sense of close to 2 pages, that's a minimum. You want to get to, close to 2 pages. But again, if you want to go over and add some more flavor, by all means. I love reading, extended papers where, again, you're talking about an in-depth topic of whatever quick write discussion tickles your fancy. So again, go as deep as you want, as long as you want. Again, incorporating the theme of what the questions are asking for, while grappling with the themes both in the book and in the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good questions though. Great questions. Any other questions, comments, or concerns before I hit into chapter 4? No? All right, sounds good. And again, you can always use your unmute button or your chat box function to get my attention, to address some clarity at any time. All right. So civil liberties, chapter 4, we're going to discuss how far our civil liberties go. Okay. So there is a limit to how far our Bill of Rights can go, our civil liberties. Again, we cannot infringe on somebody else's civil liberties because, again, it wouldn't be, what everybody else is entitled to in society. So civil liberties, we're going to be talking about the 10 amendments in terms of how the law sees the line in the sand, how far we can go with regards to our civil liberties. Okay, so we're going to be talking about case law that has brought about different understandings with regards to interpretation of how far our civil liberties will go. All right. All right. So freedom of the press and freedom of religion. So we're going to be talking about a lot of those aspects today in lecture. Again, we're going to be talking about how the United States Supreme Court has resolved these conflicts through rulings. Okay. So again, we're going to be talking about cases that come up that highlight how far our civil liberties go, or how, that line in the sand that has now been drawn by way of case law. Okay, so we're going to be highlighting some of those cases today. It was not until the 14th Amendment that in 1868, civil liberties granted by the national government applied to the states. Okay, so meaning I'm going to show you what the theory of incorporation is. Okay, in the sense that before the enjoyment of civil liberties by African Americans, by females, by people of color, you had a situation where the application of the 14th Amendment had to apply to state governments. Because again, you had the era of Jim Crow, Reconstruction, that didn't allow certain civil liberties to exist. Okay? So this theory of incorporation was in 1925, specifically highlighting due process of law. Okay, so when we're talking about due process, Gitlow versus New York, 1925, this is protection of the First Amendment rights from state action infringement. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean in an illustration in the next slide. So what is the theory of incorporation again? The view that most of the protections of the Bill of Rights apply to state governments through the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause. All right. So what do I mean by that? Looks like this. Okay, so we have our Bill of Rights, our first 10 amendments, and it's always applied to the national government. Okay, the national government wrote it. But it wasn't until the 14th Amendment, okay, after the Civil War, that it then applied to state and local governments. Okay? So actually respecting this theory of incorporation specifically, again, took some time. Okay, in the sense that, again, states and local jurisdictions, they stuck with, the idea of what Jim Crow was, the anti-busing movement, all those different things that happened that, again, when you have the 14th Amendment, people of color are entitled to due process of law and equal protection of the law. All right. So when it comes to our freedom of religion or freedom from religion, okay, for those atheists out there, again, the idea behind what our country believes in. I loved how you guys grappled with the idea behind Christianity, whether it was or was not a part of the founders' plans. Again, how you came to highlight the notions behind what the philosophers said. So again, highlighting different notions behind what the freedom of religion consists of. Okay? So what are those two principal rules that apply to freedom of religion? Okay, so it guarantees the separation of church and state. Okay, so separation of church and state, the idea that, again, what the First Amendment is, the idea of freedom of religion, again, or freedom from religion, entitles a separation of church and state. Okay, in the sense that the colonists and afterwards, when it comes to this after Civil War America and Reconstruction, they didn't want a semblance of what the monarch was. Again, the ideas of King George III, the Church of England, they wanted a separation of church and state. So again, there was no right or wrong answer to that because, again, Christian ideals are still very much a part of the overall dynamic. But to actually say it was, the main reason behind why a government was formed, can be up for debate. Okay? So, and the second guarantees freedom of religion. Okay, or again, freedom from religion, meaning the state is not going to indoctrinate a certain belief system or belief process on the citizen. Okay, so separation between church and state. So the first part is the Establishment Clause. Okay, the idea behind the part of the First Amendment prohibiting the establishment of a church officially supported by the national government. Okay, so again, not wanting to mimic something like what King George III was in the Church of England in that way. Okay, so it was designed to create a wall of separation between church and state. Okay, not having that mechanism where a belief system is forced on a citizenry. Okay. So aid to church-related schools. Okay, so how is that justified? Okay, so when it comes to schools that have specifically religious-based education themes that go along with the education itself. Okay, so a big case came up back in 1978 called Lemon versus Kurtzman. Okay, Lemon versus Kurtzman, big in the sense that it set forth the Lemon test. Okay, it set forth a Lemon test where it was going to test as to what and how the justification behind that aid from the national government to a church-related school was justified. Okay, so the Lemon test was one, the aid had to be secular or non-religious in aim. Okay, so when it comes to the aid, specifically with regards to education, education is the aim. It's to educate the citizenry. That is number two, also fulfilling number two. It could not have the primary effect of advancing or inhibiting religion. So again, if you ground a structure of schooling in the idea of education, that's justifying, again, you're not primary effect is not advancing or inhibiting religion. It's to educate your students. Okay. So again, that also passes the Lemon test. So, and number three, you're going to see this as a common theme when it comes to government, kind of having a hands-off approach when it comes to how religious-based ideas, move forward. So number three, the government must, quote, avoid an excessive government entanglement with religion. Okay, so again, not wanting to get involved or try to micromanage, the idea behind what religion is to an individual. So what about school vouchers? So many people, find it, when it comes to where they live or school choice, utilizing funds to go to a different school that may be public or private. School vouchers allow that. Okay, so every day, I'll tell you, so every day you were in school from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, your school district made what was referred to as ADA. Okay, they pushed you being in school because every day you're in school, the school district makes money off of your presence in that school to be educated. Okay, it's called average daily attendance, ADA. So what school vouchers did in the sense of what that is, you can now use that money to now subsidize a private school education if you want to go to it, different purchasing of education as what you can do. So it was encouraging for those who want to support school choice and school vouchers as tuition credits and things of the like. So again, kind of broadening the spectrum of how an individual can attain an education. Oftentimes you're where you're born or where you live is what the school district, you kind of feed to. With school vouchers, some may argue that it gives school choice, but again, you have to take it, with a grain of salt. Some of those institutions that have school vouchers, they have been known to be very sketchy. Some of them are great. Some of them have great programs, but some are kind of fly-by-night educations. So again, you have to make sure that, again, the components to what that education means. All right. So what about the issue of school prayer? Okay, so the issue of prayer in schools oftentimes very much differs from what region you live in. Okay, this is very much a regional aspect to, again, how the court has very much seen what school prayer is. So specifically, it said the constitutional prohibition against laws respecting an establishment of a religion must mean, at least in this country, it is no part of the business of government to compose official prayers for any group of American people to recite as part of a religious program carried on by any government. Okay? So again, where it comes to varying on region, some areas of back in the Midwest, they have religious programs, oftentimes textbooks, taught to students that have certain religious slants to them. So that wouldn't fly, let's say, in California. There was a big case called Michael Newdow versus Elk Grove that called into question the idea of reciting under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Michael Newdow was a big atheist, so he himself, the idea of challenging that in the courts. So again, different areas that speak to different themes as to how their local region handles certain issues. I can speak for before football games or wrestling matches. I had coaches that would get together for group prayer. where again, some other regions may say, no way, you can't do that. So again, different regions that exist where again, it very much speaks to how, it's very much, up to the area in which the school district, sees certain aspects of politics. So the debate does continue as lower courts rule that states can require a moment of silence in the school, as long as they make it clear that the purpose of the law is secular and not religious. Okay, so if you've ever heard, perhaps a moment of silence at the, let's say at Friday basketball games for high school students that may have passed away, an administrator that may have passed away. Again, it's made out of respect. So the reason why, again, a purpose of the law is secular, non-religious, is out of respect rather than a religious slant. Okay, so oftentimes that'll take place at different schools that suffer those types of tragedies. So again, you see where that, region and school district really does apply to how they see things. That flexibility. So forbidding the teaching of evolution. So when we're talking about Darwinism, when it comes to, the progression of life. So, very much, when it comes to religious belief systems, science as a religion, different ways in which this can be very, very political. But in 1968, the Supreme Court held that Arkansas law prohibiting the teaching of evolution because it violated the Establishment Clause, because it imposed religious beliefs on students. So again, you see again where the Supreme Court holds these ideas behind the violation of the Establishment Clause, but school districts and local groups still continue the effort, okay, with regards to evolution. The teachings of Darwinism in some areas, again, is very taboo because of the region itself that again speaks to certain religious backing, religious institutions, that exist. All right. So, what about religious displays on public property? So, this is on public property. Private property, you go nuts. If you're on your own property, you can put up anything you want. This is for those that specifically is in public property. So governmental buildings, the DMV, all these areas that again can be seen as public property. Right? So the court has ruled to allow some and forbid others. Okay, so again, very much specific to the case at hand. Okay, so they've said specifically that nativity scenes and the 10 Commandments are acceptable if they're part of a broader display that contains secular items such as lights, Christmas trees, Santa Claus figures, and reindeer. Okay, so a standalone cliche is not acceptable. Okay, so again, this is where the law has, decided to interpret it, depending on, again, if they're having these secular items, reindeer, Santa Claus, it makes it okay. Whereas the standalone cliches of the 10 Commandments or, the nativity scenes, which nativity scene is, the birth of Christ, again, you have different interpretations based on, again, specific circumstance. Okay. So what about the other side of the, again, freedom of religion? The Establishment Clause was the first, and the second part is the Free Exercise Clause. Okay, so again, that two-part of the freedom of religion, the Establishment Clause being the first, the second being Free Exercise Clause. Okay, this provision of the First Amendment guaranteeing the free exercise of religion. Okay? So there's a caveat to this. Okay, yet if religious practices work against public policy and the public welfare, the government can act. Okay. So what do I mean by that? If your religion involves, sacrificing animals in your basement, the government can act. Okay, so again, when it comes to sanitation, everything else that's involved in that, you can't justify things and say, oh, it's my religion. I sacrifice animals in my basement. No, there's a lot of health codes that go along with that. A lot of things that have to take place. So again, there's limitations. Also, obviously, if your religion involves abusing children, 100% that's going to be against the law. You can't justify a religion and say, oh, it says to do this. No, that's completely against public policy and public welfare, which again is where the government can act. Churches and religious organizations as tax-exempt bodies. So that alone is very political in the sense that churches pay no taxes, no property taxes, nothing. Again, it's a situation that a lot of tax dollars are, simply not tapped into because of the strength of the freedom of religion. The idea that freedom of religion is so free that it shouldn't be taxed, or the institutions that make it exist shouldn't be taxed. They're nonprofits, which I don't know if I grew up Catholic, but the last time I saw the Vatican, it was not hurting for money. There's a lot of different gold pieces. So again, different ways that exists where you tap into resources that again you see that again could help people when it comes to different projects that can take place. But again, you're leaving a lot of money on the table when again you're allowing institutions to exist without having to pay taxes. All right. So they're not allowed to endorse. So any churches or religious organizations, they're not allowed to endorse or make contributions to candidates or their campaigns, but they are allowed to take positions on ballot proposals. Okay, so meaning, let's say in 2010, you had Prop 10 that tried to define here in California, by way of proposition, the definition of a man, or the definition of a marriage between a man and a woman. Okay, so trying to basically force a certain belief system on government, and one of that involved where church organizations, they took positions on that, again endorsing that very aspect in a very rigid way and saying, this is the way it's supposed to be. But it failed. It failed in 2010 because, again, it specifically, utilized a way in which, again, the Supreme Court has said, it's not going to happen. You have, situations where equal protection doesn't happen if you don't have those aspects. All right. So what about freedom of expression? So prior restraint very much involved in the case of the New York Times versus the United States. Okay. So this is during the Vietnam War era. Okay. Very, very tenuous time, very unpopular war at the time. As you see during the Vietnam War era, more publications, media start getting a hold of secret history, secret wars that were being fought, not just in Vietnam. Okay, so we were supposed to be at war just in Vietnam, but what the New York Times had unearthed in what was referred to as the Pentagon Papers was that wars were being fought not just in Vietnam, but Laos, Cambodia, all these different areas that again speak to that area of effect that specifically speaks to certain countries and how they were having to unwittingly have to face the backlash because again you have different operations that exist because of certain networks of individuals who want to do harm to the United States. So specifically what happened was the Pentagon got wind of the secret papers, the secret history, the Pentagon Papers, and said, you know what, you're not going to publish this. So the New York Times sued the Pentagon, specifically the United States, saying you can't do that. You can't restrain an activity before it's actually happened. Right? So this really affirmed no prior restraint. You can't restrain an activity before it's actually happened. So again, 6-3 in favor of the publication of the New York Times during the 1971 case. So what about protection of symbolic speech? Okay, so how far do our civil liberties go based on what we can wear? Okay, what types of gestures we can make, hand movements, nonverbal communication. Okay, so that's considered symbolic speech. Okay, so not just what we wear, but the hand gestures we make, the movements we make, nonverbal communication. So what do I mean by that? So as repulsive as it must be to a lot of people, flag burning is protected symbolic speech. Okay, so again, the idea is, it's protected based on the law. It was, tried to be fielded during our last president, tried to make it a felony of sorts, never got any momentum, was never going to happen. But again, you see where that is protected symbolic speech, again, as repulsive as it may be to a lot of people. Cross burning. Okay, so what about cross burning? It must prove intimidation with the intent of discrimination. Okay, so when you're talking about the sweltering racist undertones that a burning cross is, we're going to be talking, about in the next chapter about the birth of a nation. Okay, we're going to be talking about how a burning cross has now epitomized different notions and undertones of racism with regards to the Ku Klux Klan. So again, this is very much, ingrained during the time of Jim Crow because of situations that, again, I will mention next chapter, referring to the civil rights chapter. So we will delve into all of those, subject matter in the next chapter. So I want your civil liberty. So I got Uncle Sam here saying, I want your civil liberty. So believe it or not, in 2001, I was a junior in high school. This was a situation where in 2001, 9/11 happened. 9/11 was one of the biggest events that caused a generational effect in my generation, below, above. But it also was a catalyst for the USA Patriot Act. And I'm going to get into that in a few slides, but just know it's an undertone for, again, our civil liberties have, since that time, started to whittle away. Okay, the government, based off of the need for security, has oftentimes skirted or navigated around the need for information over the need for, let's say, the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable searches and seizures. So again, you have all of these aspects that go along with different events that take place throughout the course of our American history. So what about commercial speech? Okay, so freedom of expression, when commercial speeches were selling something. So commercial speeches, basically something that we're advertising. It's increasingly has been given First Amendment protection. However, okay, when it comes to a business engaging in commercial speech, it's subject to factual inaccuracies and liable for them in ways that do not apply to non-commercial speech. Okay, so if you're making, these assertions in your commercials or advertising, or saying you're gonna, do something, it really, in the sense of saying what you do and meaning what you say. Again, when it comes to commercial speech, it has been subject to factual inaccuracies in ways that do not apply to non-commercial speech. So if I'm not making money from it, I'm given more protection. If I'm making money out of what I'm saying or writing down or advertising, it's under more scrutiny. Okay, so again, that's that dynamic between non-commercial speech, I'm just saying it, not making money from it, whereas commercial speech, what I'm saying and advertising is trying to make money. So attempts to ban subversive or advocacy speech, okay? This is a huge component to everything that's going on right now in Congress, okay? So Congress is going through a second impeachment of former president. So you have a situation now where Congress is trying to define what advocacy or subversive speech is. Okay, so again, you have the dynamic of the January 5th incident, but again, they're looking to define what the ideas behind subversive speech was. And the law is very, very specific as to what that entails. Okay, so it has gone through different definitions over the course of time, but that last one is the current evaluating legal standard. So the first one was a clear and present danger test. Okay? This was saying that expression can be restricted if evidence exists that such expression would cause a dangerous condition, actual or imminent, that Congress has the power to prevent. Okay, so this isn't just regarding the Capitol riots. This is also regarding, let's say, somebody that wants to take over the government, individuals that preach, Black nationalism, white nationalism, all these different aspects to fringe groups. Again, where their speech becomes violent. Okay, so again, concerning what the government and when it can act based off of these actual or imminent dangerous conditions. Okay? So that was the first standard. Second standard that spawned from Gitlow versus New York was the bad tendency rule. So according to this rule, speech can be curtailed if there is a possibility that such expression might lead to some quote unquote evil. So the bad tendency rule, again, the definition of evil for one person, may not be evil for another. Okay, so again, and vice versa. So again, still very vague in terms of where a danger is actual or imminent, an evil expression that might lead to some evil. So the current standard by which the law, when government can act, is the imminent lawless action test. So this is the current standard established by the Supreme Court for evaluating the legality of such advocacy speech. So such speech can be forbidden only when it is, quote, directed to inciting imminent lawless action. Okay, so again, that's important. Speech can be forbidden only when it's directed to inciting imminent lawless action. So again, that standard by which not just the former president's going to have to go through, but also anybody that's trying to, take over government or, different things that, again, where, you have, the FBI list that people are on that, again, preach, some sort of hate group in some sort of way. Again, you have different ways in which, again, this test evaluating when the government can actually act. All right. So unprotected speech, when it comes to obscenity, specifically more in line with pornography. Okay. So when it comes to material obscene, Miller versus California was a big case in the sense that it defined four aspects of what or when it is seen as pornography or smut by way of interpretation. Okay, so in Miller versus California, big case in 1973, it said that material is obscene if, number one, the average person finds that it violates contemporary community standards. Okay. Number two, the work taken as a whole appeals to a prudent interest in sex. Number three, the work shows patently offensive sexual conduct. And number four, the work lacks serious redeeming literary, artistic, political, or scientific merit. Right? So based on that definition, it is very, very vague. Okay, in the sense that some jurisdictions allow certain things where other jurisdictions do not. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So it has been left determination by state and local authorities and is widely inconsistent. Okay, so for example, so in parts of Las Vegas, in the out parts, prostitution is legal. Okay. Clark County has said prostitution is legal, where again, you have areas like in the Midwest, Bible Belt, or even here in the Valley, that would never happen. Okay, so again, different ways in which certain jurisdictions have certain ways to, again, tinker with how or what is seen as obscene. Okay, so again, Miller versus California has allowed that flexibility to exist with the state and local authorities. However, when children are involved, that's when, again, the idea of public welfare and public safety is at hand. Okay, so again, protecting children, you outlaw possession in the home because owning material perpetuates commercial demand for it and the exploitation of the children involved. Okay, so again, that's where, again, the seizing of devices happens in people's houses that are, in that, very, very obscene, horrible trade in what it is. So again, you see where the law has decided that is against public welfare and action needs to be taken immediately. So again, that's where the standard lies. Okay? So pornography on the internet, public schools and library filters. So I was a middle school teacher. You had every filter up in the book tried to stop students from activating some certain things. A lot of other teachers, never me, would get busted in the sense of having, a student in their classroom streaming that stuff. And again, you have a situation where you're trying to put up these filters, but students, they have their own smartphones a lot of times. They have their own devices that, again, you don't know what they're doing. So it's made it the pits for a lot of teachers again, based on that, dynamic. All right. So what about unprotected speech when it comes to slander? Okay. So slander is defamation of character. Okay. So it is wrongfully hurting a person's good reputation. Okay. So slander has to happen within the hearing of a third party. Okay, so meaning, somebody can't just say something bad about you and you're not, based off of what you say. Slander involves more of, a reputation. Okay, so oftentimes you have to prove in court that slanderous statement ruined your reputation. Okay, so it's not just as easy as saying, oh, this person called me a name. No, slander involves harming good reputation. So you have to prove that in court that, again, maybe you suffered losses, you lost your job, you started going through depression. So again, all these different things that have to be proven in a court of law, or it's just going to get thrown out. Okay. So what about student speech? So you all know K through 12 education, you had no rights. Okay, absolutely none. I like to say you had negative rights. Okay, why do I say negative rights? A case that comes up in mind is Morse versus Friedrich. Okay, in 2002. Okay, so let me set the stage. In 2002, small Alaskan town, they're going through with the Olympic torch. Okay, the Winter Olympic Games are taking place. It's going through Alaska at the time. These high school students, they are. It is not during school time. Okay, so it's not during school hours, and they're not on school campus. Okay, they're across the street. So these students, okay, in Morse versus Friedrich, okay, they decide to hold up a sign that reads "Bong hits for Jesus." Okay, and I shit you not. So you see this where, again, all the media, okay, you had media from, all over the world that, again, was seeing, the Olympic torch go through this small Alaskan town, and a school administrator, okay, saw what these high school students were doing, knew who they were, knew what they, everything. She decided, okay, and again, mind you, this is not during school hours, and these students are not on school property, okay, decided to subsequently go over, take their sign, and suspend the individual in charge of writing the sign, okay? So they decide to go all the way to the Supreme Court. So imagine that, a high school case where in 2002, it was decided, okay, that the administrator had every right because of the reputation of the school, in light of all the national media, the world media that was there. So again, that's why I say negative rights, okay, when you're a K through 12 student, because again, these students weren't even on campus and it wasn't even school time. And this guy still got expelled. So again, I like to say negative rights because, again, that's what it epitomizes in that way. So what about college? It does get a little better in college. You do have, you're being able to assert yourself, knowing your rights. So again, remember how I pointed them out in chapter 2. Be cognizant of what they are so that, again, you're better able to assert yourself. But again, college students, you're still under the guise of oftentimes, academic codes, these honor codes that, again, not just encompass, not plagiarizing, but, you have to, you have a decorum about you. You represent not only yourself and your family, but, the university when you become a student there. So just as much as you guys, you all are representative of COS. So again, the idea behind that, reflective in these honor codes and these school codes that exist. And we'll make mention of them in the next slide. But when it comes to college student activity fees, okay, you'll notice that when it comes to having to pay tuition, some of it goes to activity fees. Okay, so it was ruled that universities can charge student activity fees if the university, quote, is determined that its mission is well served, if students have the means to engage in dynamic discussions of the philosophical, religious, scientific, social, and political subjects in their extracurricular life, entitled to impose mandatory fees to sustain an open dialogue to those ends. And so basically justifying those activity fees. If they are fulfilling these dynamics in the philosophical, religious, political, so forth, they're able to impose these fees to make it a little bit harder, when it comes to, different activities, different things you can do, because again, slowly but surely you've seen tuition go up. And again, I graduated college in 2007, and just the short time I've seen it, I just know that, again, tuition has just gone up exponentially. All right, bong hits for Jesus. All right, so what about, again, like I said, campus speech and behavior codes? Okay, so again, like I said, that honor code, the decorum of what a student should be or how they should be. Doe versus University of Michigan, this was a really big case because the University of Michigan tried to define what hate speech was. Okay, so basically trying to tell the student population that, again, they should curtail certain elements of what hate speech in the university's definition as to what that is. Okay, so university codes that prohibit hate speech have been ruled unconstitutional by the federal courts, but codes continue to be written and observed. Okay, so again, meaning that hate speech, universities can't tell you what hate speech is. They don't have that ability to determine what that is because it's the court's determination to do that, not an institution of higher learning. Okay? So again, Doe versus University of Michigan, a big case in that. So what about freedom of the press? Okay, so basically what's written, about one in print, digitally, all of these different things that go along for defamation in writing, right? Libel. Okay, it's called libel. So slander is spoken. Slander is spoken. Libel is written. Okay, so it is written specifically damaging a person's character, reputation, business, or property rights. Okay, so again, that's what libel would be in the sense of writing something bad about somebody. And again, the same dynamic with slander, it must be witnessed or observed by a third party. So again, same idea. Again, what about when it comes to celebrities? When we go through the aisles of all these, grocery stores, you hear you see the gossip mags that, have celebrities and are talking a bunch of mad garbage about them. So how are they justified? Okay. New York Times versus Sullivan was a big case in that way. Okay. Speaking to actual malice in the sense that when a celebrity or public official, a politician, they specifically know what they're signing up for. Okay. They know that their image in society is based on, public appearances and oftentimes public scrutiny. Okay. So when it comes to what that is, it's been applied to public figures or public officials or movie stars or other persons known to the public because of his or her positions or activities. Right? So again, it's very difficult for a celebrity to prove that case of actual malice unless they really have good lawyers, which a lot of them do, obviously. So again, it does happen, but again, you have to prove that in a court of law. So what about a free press versus a free trial? Okay, so again, when we weigh, let's say if we've been done wrong in a business transaction, we can go to civil court. Okay, if we are, the suspect in a crime that we're suspected of committing, we go to the criminal court. Okay, so again, you have the civil court system and the criminal court system. Okay, so civil, again, dealing with businesses, dealing with interactions with society, but criminal, again, is where criminality has taken place. Penal codes have been broken. So again, that's that dynamic that's different. So what about that? So oftentimes a judge in those cases, regardless of civil or criminal, they'll issue gag orders. Okay, so what are gag orders? It's specifically an order issued by judges restricting the publication of news about a trial or pre-trial hearing to protect the right of the accused to a fair trial. Okay, so gag orders oftentimes are also given to, let's say, jurors. I've served on 2 juries, both a criminal and a civil case. So when it comes to, again, how gag orders are in place, jurors are not allowed to talk to each other until the very, very end, when, again, deliberations take place. So again, that's a type of gag orders that takes place. However, it may be pointless because of a juror's ability to activate social media. Okay, so oftentimes we don't know what comes up on our feed sometimes. This can be very questionable in terms of how jurors are not allowed to interact with what media is producing around certain cases and things of that nature. So again, it's very much caused those things to be put into question. All right. So freedom of expression when it comes to radio, when it comes to television, when it comes to anything dealing with technology. Okay. So when it comes to films, radio, TV, there are distinctions between them all. Okay. So films have been given the most First Amendment protection. Motion pictures, the labeling of R, PG-13, PG, G. So all of these different rating systems allow the individual to say, hey, I know what I'm getting into. I'm purchasing a ticket for that film, or I'm allowing it to stream based off of what it is. So I know what I'm getting into. Okay? Whereas when it comes to radio and TV, they have been given the least amount of First Amendment protections. Okay? Meaning the Federal Communications Commission has the right to impose fines and sanctions for filthy words, okay, even if the words are not legally obscene. Okay? So let's take, for instance, this Sunday is the Super Bowl. Okay, so Super Bowl is happening in live time. So you've had Super Bowls, and I've heard broadcasts where it's happening, where the winning team, it's in real time. So you'll hear the F-bombs going off left and right as the winning team is celebrating. Okay, so believe it or not, that network is getting a fine for every single one of them if they are streamed. So if they're not getting a deep enough lag in the sense of being able to identify them and cut them out, they're going to get fined for them. Okay, there's funny Reddit posts where I've seen where people will actually put down what they've how they've basically spoken to the FCC, written this complaint to the FCC based on the profanity involved. Okay, so what do I mean by filthy words? So George Carlin, one of my favorite comedians, definitely top 5. The late George Carlin, he passed away in 2008, I believe, or 2007, I think 8. But anyway, very, very cool guy in the sense of just being down to earth, being the ability to pick apart politics, both sides. He was a cab driver, but anyway, he had a broadcast of filthy words in 1973. Okay, it was a video specifically where it was broadcast in a routine uncensored afternoon of October 30th, 1973. Right. There was a situation where a man was driving with his son in the car when he heard it. Okay, so if you know anything about George Carlin, he can cuss like a sailor, and doesn't have any qualm about it. So a man was driving with his son, and he heard it, and he filed a complaint with the FCC. Right. In 1978, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the FCC, saying that they can impose these fines. Again, it was not censored. If you're in a car with your son, the idea, the dynamic behind that. If we were actually in a physical classroom, I would show you guys all a strip of George Carlin, and basically allow you guys to dialogue whether or not you'd be comfortable or uncomfortable with your dad or mom sitting next to you listening to it. So, but again, Pacifica versus FCC really sets in line where, again, the government can impose fines on these media outlets, radio and TV, that again, are violating these filthy words. All right. So, what about the right to privacy? Okay. So, when it comes to the right to privacy, a woman's right to choose. Okay. So, a woman's right to choose, or based on a mandated approach by, when the government says, a woman has to. Again, this is very much based on states and at what trimester a woman is expected to make that decision. Okay, so Roe versus Wade, very, very, very important in terms of, the idea behind accepting the laws that it violated Jane Roe's right to privacy under the Constitution. So a woman's right to choose is her right to privacy. So now the decision varies from state to state. So again, the funding or defunding of Planned Parenthood, that becomes very political because, again, abortions take place in abortion clinics where, Planned Parenthood is that. So again, you see where that is very, very political based on states. Okay? So the access to abortion clinics of that nature, again, very, very political as to what's funded and what's not funded. Okay? So what about partial birth abortions or, late-term abortions when it comes to how a woman can be prosecuted? Okay, so there was a federal law passed in 2003 effectively banning partial birth abortions. So meaning a woman has to have that timing or be cognizant of that timing based on her state as to, again, when she's expected to make that decision. Okay, so is she going to keep the baby? Is she not? Again, based on the law, varying state to state. Again, the access can be an issue as well. So again, all those different things that revolve around a woman's right to privacy. So what about privacy rights and the right to die? Okay, so Cruzen versus Director of Missouri Department of Health. This is specifically saying as to whether or not to keep life supported. Okay, as morbid as the subject is, a lot of families right now are having to make that decision. I know I had my aunt a few weeks ago. She had to make that decision in the sense that her family was either going to keep the life support in or not. And again, when you come to a certain standard, your family, has the ability to make that decision for you based on the interpretation of the law. So it stated that a patient's life-sustaining treatment can be withdrawn at the request of a family member only if there is a clear and convincing evidence that the patient did not want such treatment. Okay, so again, articulating to your family what your final wishes would be. Okay, so again, as morbid as the subject is, you want your family to be able to make that decision without reservation or hurt. Okay, because again, if we're in a coma or we're going to end up brain dead, or that quality of life that we may or may not have, we have to take that into account. And again, discussing with our family members what that would be, because again, in the end, Cruzen versus Director of Missouri Department of Health has said that your family members have that say. So what if there's no living will? Okay, so what if there's no will? So in the Terry Schiavo case, this was a peculiar case in the sense that the husband wanted, after having his wife in a coma for 2 years and medical examiners saying that she was brain dead, wanted to take out her life support. Okay, her parents did not. They said vehemently, no, even though she's brain dead, that's our daughter, we can't do that. So what happened was, based on interpretation of the law, the husband was allowed to make the decision. Okay, the idea that when you enter into a matrimonial union, your spouse or significant other now has that say over your parents. Okay, so again, it's always good to articulate with your loved one, your spouse, your significant other about what your wishes would be, because they have the right, not your parents. Okay, the husband in this case, again, made that decision to, again, I'm sure with a heavy heart, having to, again, make that decision for his wife, based on, again, her quality of life and his interpretation of it. Okay. All right. Yeah, I appreciate that, Chloe. It was one of those things where, again, ants, we want to keep them alive for sometimes our own selfish reasons, just because, again, but, the quality of life, you always have to take that into account in the sense of what that means in the long run. And again, life happens so fast. And right now, for a lot of people, it's happening really fast. So, again, I'm one of those ones, you can't bog yourself down in the negative, because that's not what a loved one would want, my aunt would want, anything in that way. So I do appreciate those well wishes, Chloe. They are definitely. So yeah, Sandra said, does that apply to do not resuscitate? Yeah. So again, the DNR orders on a lot of situations where again they say you can't resuscitate. You let them. Based on their medical history and complications, they've said, if they do end up in ER, they're not going to be resuscitated. You're based on again the dynamic of what your family has said, your final wishes would be. But great question, Sandra. As well as DNI, yeah. So do not intubate. So yeah, it also does apply to that. So all of these, you really want to get into a will as to again what your final wishes would be. Okay, because again, your family may have a good indication, but unless they have it in writing, that's when it's going to become legal. So again, knowing what your final wishes would be based on again what your family would say your quality of life is, holding that aspect at their I'm sure heavy heart decision to make. So I didn't know that. Yeah, so I didn't know that even veterinary clinics have a DNR orders, based on that. So again, that enlightened me, Diego, because I had no clue. But yeah, I'm sure that's even heavier heart. I mean, there's some people that love animals over humans, which is crazy to me. But in the sense of again having that order, where again an animal would also have that right. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So they asked me when my pet needed a surgery. Oh, okay. So again, that's informative in the sense that again, I'm sure you have him chipped. He's living the good life. So again, I'm sure in the sense that based on situation, you'd want to see him before you have a DNR order on your loved one pet. So in the sense of again, that's news to me that again you can have a DNR order on your poor little pet. Maybe going through some things. I want to see it. I want to kiss it a few times before I make that decision. So yeah. All right. So moving on. Good questions. I like them as you guys are engaging in what I'm saying. But again, Terry Schiavo, very very good case in the sense of again you want to have a living will. You want to know and let your family know what your wishes would be. Okay, don't let them fight it out. As if something were to happen in that way. So what about physicians assisted suicide? So PAS. So physicians assisted suicide, where an individual has been for a long time suffering from a terminal illness. Okay, so when you're talking about stage 4 cancer, leukemia, all of these things that can be devastating to an individual. Their quality of life has been, down and horrible in the dumps for some time. So physicians assisted suicide, when it comes to the court has stated that liberty interest protected by the Constitution does not include a right to commit suicide. So liberty does not give you the right to end your life. Okay, that's what the government has said. Just because you want to end your life doesn't mean you have that right to do so, okay, with or without assistance. However, that court has also said that it needs to be up to the determination of the states. Okay, so right now you have different states that have different laws regarding physicians assisted suicide. Okay, so as you see there, Oregon and Washington, once an individual has established residency there, has gone to medical examinations, I'm sure to psychological evaluations as well. Once all those things are taken into account, then the process of physicians assisted suicide can happen. It's not, going up there and ending your life. No, they have to have a track record, what you're afflicted with, all of these different components that go into what determination of a physician's assisted suicide would, warrant that very end. Okay. Right. So what about the rights of the accused when it comes to the conduct of officers and prosecutors? So if one is facing a criminal charge, okay, so let's say I'm facing a criminal charge, there are limits to what police officers and prosecutors can do when they're going about not only detaining me, arresting me, but subsequently how they accumulate evidence and so forth. Okay, so defendants' pretrial rights and trial rights. So there are rights specifically, again, where here in the United States, we find them very basic, but in other countries, they're not so basic. Okay, one of those is a writ of habeas corpus. Okay, so writ of habeas corpus is basically requiring jailers to bring a prisoner before a court and a judge and explain why the person is being held. Okay? So I say basic in the sense that, let's say in other countries, it's not unusual to be in custody for 5, 10, 20 years before you even see a judge to be told what you're being charged with. Okay, so again, writ of habeas corpus is that, again, that immediate, being told what you're being charged with, so that, again, you're not being held on charges you don't even know you have, basically. An arraignment is your first act in a criminal proceeding in which the defendant is brought before a court to hear the charges against him or her, to enter a guilty or not guilty plea. Okay, so you can also enter a no contest plea as well. No contest is saying you're not pleading guilty to the charge, but you're not contesting the charges either. Okay, so again, often this is reflective of a plea bargain with the prosecution. They may say, we'll drop a couple charges or we'll reduce the fine or the sentence. So again, oftentimes a no contest plea involves that aspect. So when it comes to the idea of having a Miranda rights. So our Miranda rights specifically, when it comes to you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you at no cost. Okay, these came from two specific cases. Okay, this notion of, again, this Miranda rights came from Miranda versus Arizona, as well as Gideon versus Wainwright. Okay, so the idea in Gideon versus Wainwright was having an attorney appointed at no cost. Okay, so again, having a public defender, I like to refer to them as public pretenders because they have so many defendants on their caseload, they really can't put enough effort into any one case. Okay, they're overloaded. So again, not to knock public defenders because there are a lot of good ones, but again, they're just stretched so thin because of the resources and the lack of resources at the public defender's office. And again, Miranda versus Arizona, the right to remain silent and have counsel present for questioning. Okay, so again, that counsel, again, going along with the Miranda rights that I just stated. Okay? So exclusionary rule, this is specifically limiting admission of trial of illegally seized evidence. Okay, so this is making sure that police officers are taking evidence properly, okay? That they're labeling things properly, they're putting it in evidence bags, they're not letting evidence, go bad in certain ways. So there are prohibitions to admission of trial of illegally seized evidence. Okay, so it forces officers to gather evidence properly, okay, in the sense that, again, they have to have these protocols that go in to how this evidence is collected so that it is still good when, court is called, in the sense of looking toward what that evidence is looking to prove. Okay? But yet there are good faith exceptions, okay? There are good faith exceptions that the court has said. Dollery Mapp Matt versus Ohio is a very, very good idea as to that good faith exception. Okay. So in the sense that Dolly Mapp, after finding obscene material without having a search warrant and without consent, they went into her home. So basically, they didn't have a search warrant and didn't have consent, but they were able to see in her house as they were talking to her something that was going wrong, specifically obscene material that she had had. So what the Fourth Amendment warrants, it must describe the persons or things being seized unless, okay, and this is the caveat, unless in plain view and reasonably appear to be contraband or evidence of a crime. So what does that mean? So let's say the cops come to one of your doors and, as they're talking to you, they say, or they see cocaine on a bedroom shelf or a dresser or something. That's plain view. Okay, this is the idea that it could represent, if they're seeing lines that are being made, they can make that determination because it is in plain view. Same thing with the abuse of a child. If they see a child that's bruised, something like that, again, they don't need a warrant because it's plain view that an evidence of a crime would exist. So those are, again, those good faith exceptions that exist. Okay. So Octavio asks, will that be seen as an admission of guilt? No contest? No. And no contest, you're not contesting the charges before you, but you're not pleading guilty either. Okay, so again, that's where no contest is saying you're not guilty, but you're not saying you're guilty either. So that's where the no contest is saying I'm accepting, my punishment as it is, because oftentimes a no contest will involve that plea bargain, saying, I'll accept those charges, I won't contest them, but I'll get a shorter sentence or a smaller fine, because again, if I agree to this with the prosecutor, oftentimes they'll cut off some charges or things like that. But good question. Very good question. All right. So as I alluded to earlier, September 11th, 2001 was a huge, incident, event that happened that really changed the dynamic of the world. Okay. In the sense that, again, you see a situation where civil liberties and security are now opposing issues. Okay. In the sense that how far does security have to go without infringing on civil liberties as far as it does. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So the USA Patriot Act was signed right after the bombing on September 11th. It has eroded certain basic rights. Okay, specifically, in particular, the Fourth Amendment. Okay, unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay, under the USA Patriot Act, under the guise of supporting terrorism, if you are specifically seen in a situation where you are a suspect in a terrorism case, they can monitor your home, internet activities, phone conversations, and financial records, okay, under the guise of fighting terrorism, okay, if they think you're supporting terrorism. Okay, so roving wiretaps as well. So a person under suspicion can be monitored electronically regardless of location or technology in use. Okay. So this refers to oftentimes ping technology. So meaning that satellite towers can pinpoint where you were last week, the week before that, the month before that. So the triangulation of points as to where your phone was at any given time. Okay, so again, they have that electronic footprint on your phone by way of ping technology. Okay, so again, this was brought to light specifically with regards to Edward Snowden. Okay, specifically with regards to Edward Snowden, I'm going to be talking about him at various points in the semester, but when it comes to how the NSA, the CIA, how they're able to utilize the PRISM program. Okay, so the PRISM program basically involves a metadata file on every citizen in this country. Okay, so basically, putting together, what you are based on your email accounts, your Facebook posts, all of these different digital ideas that make you you. Okay, so again, Edward Snowden brought that to the attention of the American people, basically highlighting this encroachment of the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment right to unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay? So again, this was referred to as the PRISM program. If you haven't seen Snowden or seen his podcast, or not his podcast, but his discussions with, let's say, Joe Rogan or others, I would suggest it. In the sense that, again, it's very enlightening. I'm as old as I'm about a year or two younger than Edward Snowden. And I think to myself, if I knew the secrets of my country, would I have the guts to do what he did in the interpretation he gave it in? And I think to myself, I'm like, no. And I don't even know the capability of my country. He did. He worked for the NSA. He worked for the CIA, and he still did it. So again, the notion of why he did it, we're going to be talking about that, later on in the semester. But again, getting a good idea as to, again, what, programs exist that, again, are trying to pinpoint who and what we are. Just, again, to not that we're doing anything wrong, but, again, the irking nature that, the government has a file, and if they need to pull it at any time, they can do so. All right, you got even Uncle Sam is not immune from the onslaught of the TSA. I hate traveling now just a lot because of the TSA. Year and a half ago, I made a flight to San Diego, and I forgot to take off my belt, took off my shoes. I was making sure that was all done. And I got the 3rd degree. Oh my God. I really felt violated. I really did, in the sense that it was like, whoa, he's really going up my crack. Like, whoa, dude. So it was one of those things where, again, you're still in public view, but again, you're just under the scrutiny that, again, you're a criminal, you're a felon or something. And it was just like, it really, really irks me to no end. And again, that's why I have my beef with TSA. I know they have a job to do, but sometimes they, in the sense of, again, going over the line. You've seen different instances where TSA has been caught doing things that were unscrupulous, to say the least. All right. So what about when it comes to immigrants? Okay. So deportees specifically that have been caught at the border, what rights are they afforded? Okay. So when it comes to the ability to have the 14th Amendment, okay, so the 14th Amendment says that all persons, okay, as opposed to citizens, shall enjoy due process of law. Okay, so meaning even if a deportee isn't a citizen, they are still afforded the right of due process, meaning they have the right to go before a judge and representation by a lawyer. Okay, so again, that due process is still afforded. However, there are massive limits as to what the aspects of limits on deportees is. So due process, the government has the right to deport non-citizens for alleged terrorism without court review of the deportation order and based on security evidence that the deportee is not allowed to see. Okay, so again, that's that limit on due process. Okay, what about the limit on freedom of speech? Okay? The Supreme Court ruled that aliens, I hate that term, it should be immigrants, have no First Amendment rights to object to deportation, even if the deportation is based on political associations. Okay, so again, that's another limit. Very much, in terms of not allowing that. Again, no First Amendment protection because of the non-citizenry designation. So limits to rights when it comes to ex post facto laws. Okay, ex post facto is laws that inflict punishment after the fact. Okay, so meaning we have situations where deportation orders, an individual can be incarcerated for, let's say, 15, 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, 180 days, all of these different things that the court can then, after this serving of sentence, can then remove them from the country. So again, ex post facto laws, the idea that you are then removed and sent back to the country of origin. Okay, so again, that limit that speaks to, again, ex post facto. All right. So quick right today. Okay, so specifically what we're going to talk about in terms of the Second Amendment. Okay, so our Second Amendment, specifically the right to bear arms. Okay, so like I said, very much going back to colonial America, how King George III did not allow colonists to own guns. So again, that's where the Second Amendment comes from. Okay, where its origins are specific to. Okay, so I ask, okay, gun control, should we ban assault weapons? Okay, so civilian use versus military use. So again, should we ban assault weapons is the question. Okay, so in terms of what you could ponder, civilian use versus military use. Okay, when it comes to, again, full-on, fully automatic weapons, using them, owning them, again, for civilian use versus military use. Okay, do you see a difference or do you not? Okay. So next question. Are we punishing law-abiding citizens who register their weapons and apply for a concealed weapons permit? Okay, so every county, okay, I think in regards to Tulare County, I believe it's Sheriff Bordeaux. In Fresno County, it's going to be Sheriff Margie Mims. They have to sign off on your concealed weapons permit, your CCW. Okay, so I ask this question in the sense that many people who break the law, when it comes to registering their weapons, oftentimes it's a stolen weapon. Okay, or doesn't have the serial number on it and different things of that nature. So again, asking and pondering that question, okay, as you're also talking about gun control. Okay, so again, looking at those areas where are we, again, punishing law-abiding citizens, or are we trying to make it safer for everyone? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Again, how you come about it. I'm looking at more, again, original thought, content, structure, grammar, punctuation. But again, dialoguing with these questions. So these are only two questions specifically as to, how we feel, but incorporate outside sources. If you want to make it longer in the sense of, again, 2 pages or not, another good aspect, bump stocks. Okay, bump stocks. Some states have, said no. Bump stocks allows a quicker, or some say a quicker reload, so you don't have to, and you're able to hold more. So again, different ways that exists where you can also dialogue about that. So again, getting into the heart and the debate of the Second Amendment. And if you want to bring up school shootings in a pro-gun control appeal, by all means, okay, by all means, because again, we all have different opinions with regards to the issue itself. Okay, so just on that note, when it comes to school shootings, if you have ever seen all the pictures of the people that have committed mass shootings, whether it be the instances, I truly have one to believe that it's beyond the ability to own a weapon. Okay, if you see the eyes of these individuals that have committed mass murder in school shootings and different domestic terror, we need to start talking about mental health. Okay. If you see the eyes, like I said, of these individuals, they either stop taking their medication, have started to self-medicate on street drugs. Again, these individuals, you can see also, different situations where, again, mental health can also play into this debate with school shootings, different things like that. So again, feeling that, it's just one dimension that you have to mention. No, go off on tangents if you so choose, especially if it makes your paper longer. So Rebecca asks, what is the current law on assault weapons? So here in California, it is very strict. Okay, especially in San Francisco County, even if you have a CCW, they do not allow you to even have a weapon there. Okay, so when it comes to that, understand that, again, it's very very much up to local jurisdictions, local states that, again, also have different interpretations. So like I said, in Texas, they allow open carry. Okay, they allow you to open carry on your hip, your weapon right on your hip. Whereas in California, no, you cannot do that. That's seen as intimidation. That's seen as harassment of some sort. So again, that is also an area, an avenue you can talk about. So is that a real question, Kami, or is that just like... Am I just talking to nobody? No, we're not done yet. I still have to ask if everybody has questions, because I just barely stopped describing the quick write. So again, no, we're not done yet. All right. So again, making sure if you have any questions, I'm sure there's probably maybe another student that does as well. So again, what you may have as questions, if you don't have them tonight, like I said, you can always email me as to what they are for clarity purposes. But again, make sure by Sunday that federalism writing assignment is, in Canvas, making sure, again, you want to maximize those points. So again, over the weekend, you can definitely do that. But again, make sure that you're working on your federalism writing assignment. Don't let that due date pass you by. Okay, so again, highlighting that area, put it on your phone, your calendar to remind you so you don't forget. But it is due on Sunday. Okay. So, private question: how would we go about relating this to the chapter material, or do we need to this week? So, good question, that private question. So, when you're talking about, again, the line in the sand that the government has drawn, okay, a lot of that determination, we have the right to bear arms, but then again, local jurisdictions at the state and county level have either decided to allow to permit certain aspects. Some counties don't give out CCWs. They don't give out concealed weapons permits. Some allow everyone to get a CCW. Again, some allow open carry, like I said, where you can have your gun on your hip. Some states don't. So where you're kind of looking to where civil liberties are, again, know that interpretation. Okay, when you're talking about interpretation of where the line in the sand of the government being able to determine how far our civil liberties go. Okay, so how far our civil liberties go, again, based on this interpretation aspect. Okay, so again, good private question in the sense that you're relating that chapter material in a lot of ways to, again, that line in the sand that's being drawn by way of these local governments, state governments, and the national government which is speaking to the right to bear arms. So Anthony asked, is it just these two questions? So yes, it is just these two questions on the last slide of the PowerPoint. Again, sometimes it'll be the last two slides, but again, this week it is just the last slide. So just two questions. Again, being able to dialogue with the ideas behind what I said about either the dynamic between school shootings, bump stocks, different states having different jurisdictions, different interpretations on the right to bear arms. So again, kind of using those components to make your paper stronger, in identifying, your opinion into the Second Amendment. But good question, Anthony. Good question. Any other questions, comments, concerns, or issues?
I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So for the first question, is it just the civilian use and military, or can we use?
Yeah, so that first question is just, should we ban assault weapons? Okay, so when I put civilian use versus military use, this is just to kind of jog your mind in the sense of maybe using certain areas. Should there be a difference between civilian use and military use? Do you see a difference? So kind of, that example of areas of which you can go. You don't have to go, but again, you can use those to make your paper longer or stronger. Okay. And then the second question again is, are we punishing law-abiding citizens who register their weapons and apply for a concealed weapons permit? All right. So those two streams of thought right there at the end, you can have one's conservative, one's more progressive. So the first is more of a progressive view in the sense of saying nobody needs these weapons for hunting or protection, which meaning fully automatic weapons, which assault weapons are. Whereas a conservative would say banning assault type weapons will have no effect. Okay, you're still going to have people that are manufacturing illegal weapons, and it's going to get into the hands of criminals. Okay, so again, when it comes to a conservative view, they're going to say that banning assault type weapons is not going to have any effect. You're shooting the messenger here. You're actually stopping the good people from putting up a fight. Okay, so again, that's more of a conservative view based on, again, what the Second Amendment is. But again, you can go off on your own opinion. Okay, you're not limited to just those two. Those are just the mainstream ones. If you see contingency, go for it. Okay, if you see different areas in which you can talk about as well concerning the Second Amendment, go for it. Another private question: are we talking on a local level or banning assault weapons on the federal level? Okay, bringing into question federalism. Go for it. See if as long as you articulate to me what aspect you see it as, by all means. You're not limited to assault weapon ban. If you want to articulate it from the national level, go for it. If you want to say that California needs to become more friendly to Second Amendment rights, by all means. Okay, so again, you're not limited to just a federal dynamic. You can also talk about the state dynamic, the local dynamics. So to that private question, again, you're talking about weapons ban, a federal assault weapons ban, in the sense of how you see it. Okay, so there's no specific standard as to how you want to view this. If you want to view it from there, by all means. If you want to view it from the state perspective, by all means. If you want to use school shootings to make your point, by all means. Again, all of these different dynamics that bring up what the Second Amendment is. And again, how different jurisdictions and states and local governments, counties that hand out CCWs, become a part of the political question. But good private question, very, very good private question. Again, in the sense of making sure that again you're seeing it on your level. You're using that creativity and soaring with it. All right, got another question. So Mr. Espinoza, I need to write about hunting weapons too, because I think it's a different topic. So again, your perspective. Again, hunting and protection weapons. Again, that civilian use versus military use. That's where, Mr. Espinoza, that's where it's going to go into, in the sense of, again, do you see a dynamic between hunting and protection use, and individuals, just using it to cause trouble? Okay, so again, you're not limited to any one hunting weapons, but again, that's saying civilian use versus military use. Okay, that's giving you again more to kind of talk about, more to kind of tinker with in that way. So again, to answer that question, Mr. Espinoza, that's kind of where it's at. You don't. It's not animal rights in the sense of, again, it's more, again, the idea of hunting. Some people use their weapons, their shotguns, different things like that to hunt. But again, that's more for civilian use. The idea of protection, civilian use versus military use. One that uses it for combat, violent, protection of whatever it is. So again, military use versus civilian use. So you're not limited to that, Mr. Espinosa. All right. Yeah, and to that private question, no problem. No problem. Any other questions, comments, or concerns or issues before I let everyone go? Yeah, no, I agree, Kami. Gun rights is a very big topic, and it's not going anywhere. So that's why I like when my students are dialoguing about it, because, again, it will always be a big topic. It's always going to be something that is going to be ripe for the talking about. I, in the sense that, again, it's not if another school shooting will happen, but when. And again, with regards to lockdowns, obviously we haven't seen schools open, but I want to be optimistic. But again, in the nature of school shootings, it's basically not an if, but a when. I really want to read your quick write, Jesse. So again, hopefully when you articulate it the best you can, I definitely want to read it, because again, I learn more about my students when I read your quick writes, because again, you're letting me insight as to how you're grappling with these questions. And again, we're all going to be, coming from a different political socialization. We may have a situation where we have, been in the army, that we have, had a police officer as a father. That's me. I've had a police officer as a father. So again, different ways in which we see or view the nature of a weapon in a different way than others might. Okay. So again, it's not that it's any better or worse. We just see it differently. We're politically socialized differently in the topic of the Second Amendment, different ways in which that is discussed. But yeah, can't wait, Jesse. Can't wait for sure, my man. So any other questions, comments for me? But again, you can always email me at any time to let me know about any type of clarity that you may have. No? All right. Have a great rest of the week. I will see everyone next Tuesday. Remember, don't forget those federalism writing assignments. Take care.